Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now, Anthony Joshua is back in the gym, building himself back up for Kubrat Pulev. Now obviously Kubrat Pulev is going to be a different opponent to the one he faced last time, Andy Ruiz Jr. So training will be different for Kubrat Pulev. Pulev is longer and doesn't necessarily like to trade up on the inside like Andy Ruiz Jr. He does fight well on the inside, but I believe that in this fight, Anthony Joshua is the inside fighter. So maybe being a bit heavier than he was last time might benefit Anthony Joshua in this fight. It's different horses for different courses, so he doesn't necessarily have to be the same as he was before to beat Kubrat Pulev. What beat Andy Ruiz Jr. won't necessarily beat a Kubrat Pulev or Alexander Usyk. Now, I believe Anthony Joshua wants to fight at a certain weight. I don't believe he wants to go above 18 stone, unless it's against a bigger, stronger fighter, like maybe even like a Dominic Brazil. I mean, Anthony Joshua's not going to fight him again, but someone that big, that strong, not necessarily fast, then it doesn't matter if he is a bit heavier. But ultimately, if he's in there with a live opponent who moves their feet well and has good stamina, then he doesn't want to be too heavy, because otherwise his stamina is going to struggle. Because Anthony Joshua does struggle going down the stretch when he has a bit of extra weight on him. Anyone will, especially when lactic acid kicks in. So Anthony Joshua will be a little bit heavier than Andy Ruiz Jr. too. Not much, but a little bit. And he did say on his Snapchat story that he is building himself back up. So obviously he said he wasn't doing any training with weights. He was not lifting weights at all. Just shadowboxing, maybe a bit of time on the bike, but that's it. I mean, for boxing, you can stay in shape by doing just shadowboxing and working on the bike. But Anthony Joshua did have a knee niggle, so ultimately he won't be lifting heavy, because obviously lifting heavier weights puts a lot of strain on your joints. That's why it's important, if you are lifting heavy, all of you guys who are starting to lift heavy, make sure you are taking cod liver oil tablets or something like that, some fish oils to help with your joints, because when you are lifting heavy, that puts a lot of strain on your joints. And especially where Anthony Joshua is just coming back from that knee niggle or injury, because he had that knee brace on, so he won't be lifting heavy because of that, because obviously that's just going to make it worse again. So coming back from that injury, it will mostly be on the bike and shadowboxing that Anthony Joshua is doing. Now, he did have like a neck brace on where he was doing neck exercises in his picture he put on Snapchat. So obviously he's building himself back up using weights for obviously the neck muscles and things like that. But ultimately, I don't believe he will go back trying to lift heavy weights like he was before. Now, in the build-up to the Ruiz Jr. rematch, he said that he was focusing a little bit too much on weight. Now, it's going to be boxing first. What he used to do was train with weights early in the morning. Now, he gives his first bit of energy in the morning to boxing, which is very important because he's a boxer first, and yeah, that comes under athlete, but he's an athlete second. Boxing has to be number one. So ultimately, I believe that Anthony Joshua is not just preparing for Kubrat Pulev. I believe he's preparing for his next bunch of fights. Obviously, that's going to entail different things. He did say during lockdown, he was working on maybe navigating that southpaw stance, which is Alexander Usyk. So Anthony Joshua is preparing for many different styles, and that is important, especially considering the time we had in lockdown. He wasn't necessarily needing to be getting ready for Kubrat Pulev because he will have 3 months of training camp in order to do that. So during lockdown, he didn't really need to be preparing for Kubrat Pulev. It helps if he does, which I believe he was anyway, but what he was doing, I think, was working on different things. He said he went back to shadowboxing, doing more than he has done in recent years. And that is important because shadowboxing is kind of a lost art of boxing. It's really good for working your jab and working on slipping shots as well. Obviously, if you shadowbox in front of a mirror, you can work on throwing your shots and slipping another. So obviously you can see yourself in the mirror throwing the shot. So you can work on slipping it as it comes back or as you see it come back in the mirror. So that's the good thing about shadowboxing. And Anthony Joshua did say he was working on navigating that southpaw stance, meaning that he is working on his jab for that southpaw stance, because his jab will be extremely important in a fight with Alexander Usyk. Now, obviously, I don't believe he was only thinking about Alexander Usyk, but Kubrat Pulev as well. Maybe even Tyson Fury also, because that's his next fights. Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Usyk, then hopefully Tyson Fury. So Anthony Joshua pretty much knows his next 3 opponents. Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Usyk, and we hope Tyson Fury. So that's kind of unique because not many fighters know beyond the next person that they are fighting, and it can be dangerous, but also it can be beneficial because you can start preparing for that fighter, especially when you have a period of isolation and lockdown. That does give Anthony Joshua the chance and opportunity to work on different things and prepare for fights down the line, not necessarily just Kubrat Pulev. But at the moment, it is important that we focus on Kubrat Pulev. There should be no looking past Kubrat Pulev. Obviously, you have to look into the future and see the other fights coming up. And during a time where you can prepare for different things and work on different things, then that's great. But ultimately, Kubrat Pulev is in the way of Anthony Joshua getting to those fights. So Pulev is number one priority at the moment. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Also, what are your thoughts on Canelo as well? Because Canelo is apparently going to fight David Lemieux in September, or at least that is a possibility. But Chris Eubank Jr. has thrown his hat into the mix, saying that he does not need 2 months to prepare for Canelo. And also, while having a sly dig at Billy Joe Saunders, saying Billy Joe Saunders needs 2 months, I need 2 days. I believe that for Canelo, if it's like David Lemieux or Murata, go for Eubank. That would be a great fight. I know maybe you could say that Eubank doesn't deserve it, but does David Lemieux? Does Murata? So the best fight for us as fans, I believe, is Canelo Eubank Jr. Better than Lemieux, better than Murata. So I'm all for that. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Canelo would be a great fight. Very entertaining. Anyway, guys, make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks, guys.